To welcome and introduce Dr. R. Balasubramaniam, affectionately known as Dr. Balu. He is a distinguished development activist and leadership trainer whose impactful journey began in remote forest-based tribal communities of Mysuru, Karnataka. With a profound commitment to social equity, he currently serves as the member of HR in the Capacity Building Commission of the Government of India and as chairman of the Social Stock Exchange Advisory Committee set up by Seva. A graduate of MBBS, Dr. Balu holds an MPhil in Hospital Administration and Health System Management from BITS, Pilani, and a Master's in Public Administration from the Harvard Kennedy School, where he was influenced by the teaching of Swami Vivekananda. At just 19, he founded the Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement, embracing principles of Ahimsa, Satya, Seva, and Tyaga. Over 3 decades, he has dedicated his life to uplifting rural and tribal communities through grassroots initiatives, including founding the Grassroots Research and Advocacy Movement, a public policy think tank in India, a celebrated scholar and author of 9 books. Dr. Balu's insights are widely sought after and his work continues to inspire change. He is also the CEO of Seva Bridge Consulting Private Limited, embodying a blend of grassroots dedication and macro-level policies influence. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome Dr. R. Balasubramaniam.
Support and admiration for them. So thank you so much. I must thank you for inviting me to obviously what is an extraordinary event, an event which reflects the meticulous planning and efforts that Vikrant and his team have taken to bring us all here itself is a great achievement. To bring us all here, sit down with all the humility that one can command, and to learn from each other, I think, is something extraordinary. And so I think that is the united spirit itself that pervades in this room. You know, we talk of ancient wisdom. And we live in a generation where if the moment you say ancient, the first thought that youngsters get in their mind is worth discarding. Ancient somehow does not resonate with what the world has fallen in love with, modernism. And if we refuse to learn from our past, I'm not sure we can craft a future that we all are dreaming about. So what I'm going to talk today is, and in one sense I believe many of us are responsible for this. We either in hyperbole describe the ancient that it's very easy to dismiss it off, or we are so emotional about it and speak so strongly about it that we overwhelm people listening to us. I think the answer lies somewhere midpoint. And what we need to search is how do you present extraordinary wisdom in an evidential way, because that's the language the modern world understands. Wisdom in a way in which it is practical, it's applicable in today's context. At the same time, we need to also bring out the fact that ancient wisdom is a property of none, but definitely of all. How do you make it part of the commons, where none of us can take ownership and say, because we in our civilizational history have never owned knowledge, we have always contributed to it. But the West only understands ownership of knowledge, and therefore patenting, IP, and all that they go through. And finally, how ancient wisdom can actually guide the motto of this conference, Seva, Paramo, Dharma. And I want to walk you through a journey, because I was looking at HR, looking at CSR, and as a member of HR of the Government of India, HR was a word never used in Government of India. We use the word personal and reforms, and it's such a sad state. We never have a Ministry of HR in the sense of managing our people. They are the greatest assets of this country. We have 2 crore government employees just in the Government of India, and another 2 crores in all the states put together. So imagine the enormous human potential that is waiting to be unleashed in doing good to this country. Imagine a potential which represents India's civilizational wisdom, if it can, and takes the spirit of Seva, Paramo, Dharma. We wouldn't need CSR then, honestly. But how do you make it happen? And so, the moment I say HR everywhere around the country, last week I was in Asia's HRD conference, and I realized I'm the only one who spoke public HR. Because if you say HR, it's all private HR, corporate HR. And the funny part is, the largest corporate of India might have 160,000, 180,000 employees. And that is spoken about as though it's an extraordinary attainment. And Government of India is 20 million. So it's a huge number. And so how do you inspire, tie a thread of Seva through everybody and get them to manifest that as Dharma? Is fortunately my job. I say fortunately because it's an extraordinary privilege to be part of a system, something which is, even in its vision, is so humongously big. The Prime Minister conceived this a few years ago and called it Mission Karma Yogi. So I represent the Capacity Building Commission, which is the heart and soul of Mission Karma Yogi. And the mandate he gave us, and it's a great mantra, and I am using that mantra every day in my life. He said, if you have to work in India, if you have to work at the scale that we are doing, a conference of 20 people is not going to solve this problem. Let's all be practical. We can all sit here, and we must also confess, we are the same club. Meghwalji's son spoke about the Zero Club. We are the same circuit club. Now, everywhere we go, we are the same faces, we are the same people, and we talk the same language because we believe in it. We are passionately committed to it. But how much of this can disseminate? How much of this can grow like a cancer? So many other cancers are growing in society. How much of this Seva Bhav can grow as an institutional process, an organic process which simply engulfs every human being in India, is something that we need to really think through and see how to make it happen. And so the Prime Minister told us there are only 4 ways, 4 S he said. अगर आप ये 4 S को उसके बारे में सीखेंगे और उसके बारे में करने के लिए different paths ढूंढेंगे तो शायद हो सकता है. पहला है आपका स्कोप डिफाइन करना चाहिए, because we waste our energies in talking so much of ancient wisdom that we go so wide that we lose track of what is depth and what is the depth that is priority for us today. And if it is Seva, how do we go about? So defining a scope, he said, is so critical, and it looks so practical, but at least for me it is extraordinarily practical. Then he said, scope तो आपने define कर दिए, लेकिन देश तो बहुत बड़ा है. 1.4 crore people is not a small, 140 crore people is not a small number. 1.4 billion people is not a small number. So you cannot say this scope we will take it to the whole country over the next 100 years. We don't have that kind of time. So how do you scale up overnight? And using technology, how do you reach every person? All this looks, just imagine Bhagavad Gita being given to mankind in the middle of warfare. Look at India today. We are all in the middle of a war. And so we need so many Krishnas and so many Arjunas giving Bhagavad Gita every day to everybody. And technology can take it in so many places. So scale is something. And again, we don't have a lot of time in our lives to do it. Well, we believe so much in Punarjanma that we think after 100 Janmas it will happen, it's okay. No, but I think, like Swamiji said, we should believe that at least one Janma I have in my hand, let me do the best I can in this Janma. The future, I don't know. So speed. So scope, scale, speed. जब भी हम भारत में स्कोप, स्पीड और स्केल के बारे में सोचते हैं, एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ को भूल जाते हैं, स्टैंडर्ड्स. We are so content with mediocrity that we have lost the ability to excel. Bharatiya Dharma is about excellence. You can look at all the ancient wisdom. The one common message that comes out is excellence. Somewhere we lost track of it, and today we are struggling to discover it. So to me, as Mission Karma Yogi. And I want to talk about Mission Karma Yogi representing the theme of this conference itself today. And that's why it is so fascinating and a privilege to be here. There were only 3 mandates we had. When we took charge, the Prime Minister told us, लोगों में कर्मचारी भाव से कर्मयोगी का भाव आना चाहिए. बोलने के लिए बहुत आसान है, कर्मचारी से कर्मयोगी, लेकिन वो भाव का ट्रांसिशन आसान नहीं है. Especially in today's world of distractions, pressures, etc. How do you get our employees, even if they can think like public servants, it's an achievement. That itself is great. If I'm taking my salary, let me deliver for my salary. It's wonderful. People don't even think like that. But how do you get them to transform themselves? And what is the state of a karma yogi? How do you practicalize it? I keep looking at it. जब newspapers में बड़ा-बड़ा obituary का advertisements आता है नीचे, especially वो industrialist हो सकता है या बड़ा academician हो सकता है. The bottom is देश के कर्म योगी हैं. Then I wonder, कर्म योगी का definition तो हर एक advertisement अलग-अलग है. So we think जो बहुत कुछ काम कर्म करते हैं वो कर्मयोगी बन जाते हैं. कर्म करने से कर्मयोगी नहीं बनते हैं. वो कर्मयोगी का एक अलग ही सूत्र है. And I think we need to really think through this. And so कर्मचारी to कर्मयोगी is not easy. कर्मचारी तो बहुत सारे लोग कर्म करते रहते हैं, पूरा करियर में कर्म करते रहते हैं, लेकिन कर्मयोगी बनना बहुत मुश्किल है. And that's our mandate. The second mandate is how to transition people from rule-based thinking to a role-based thinking. It's so beautiful. Now look at Krishna. He is the greatest teacher for all of us. He can be a charioteer, he can be a mentor, he can play God, all in the Bhagavad Gita. You just go through it. He can be a great psychologist, he can be an expert on warfare, he could lecture on Dharma, he could lecture on Karma, Jnana, Bhakti. And look at the power of the message he gives us. And to me, I think this is something extraordinarily powerful. We play several roles, but we get confused. When Krishna was a Sarthi, he never played the Bhagwan ka role. He could separate out. But today we are all so encapsulated in our roles, and many of our senior colleagues in government suffer from this. Retirement के बाद उतना vacuum हो जाता है उन लोगों में, roles ढूंढते रहते हैं. And roles के लिए तो इतना, I don't want to say anything more, all of us know this. But the third mandate is, all this is nice, कर्मचारी से कर्मयोगी बन सकते हैं, but how do you take India to the future? In a world where incidents like COVID, the uncertainty is trained to be the king. And what Rama tells Bharata, and Valmiki writes it so beautifully, is it's a manual on good governance. From mantra shakti to how do you listen to people, to how do you take care of trade, how do you look at economy, how do you balance it with ecology. Today those principles are still valid, but we don't. If I say Ramayana, Mahabharata, we won't read it. But if I say World Bank or good governance, we immediately take it. I'm not saying they are wrong. I'm only saying ancient wisdom must be relooked, analyzed, and the good of it taken. Everything is not good. I'm not even claiming everything is good. Then it's not wisdom. Here I'm only talking about the good, ancient wisdom. Ancient stuff बहुत सारे चीज़ है. उसको मैं discard करके, filter करके सिर्फ wisdom के बारे में बात कर रहा हूँ. So the third guna is Rajya Karma. And Kautilya doesn't have time for stories. He's very clear. He's so mechanistic and direct and incisive. He simply writes, एक राजा का काम दो ही responsibilities है, दो ही जिम्मेदारी है. एक है लोक संग्रह, दूसरा चीज़ है योगक्षेम. And he's so demanding. He says, ये दोनों करने के लिए आसान नहीं है. करने के लिए इंद्रिय विजयी होना चाहिए राजा. आजकल का प्रॉब्लम है, हमारा जो भी रूलिंग सोचते हैं, इंद्रिय विजयी is not easy for them. Indriya Nigraha was celebrated in India. Today the world is a mess because Indriya Nigraha is not there. Manifestation of Aham is taken precedence over Indriya Vijayi. And the real world and opportunities from ancient wisdom is how do you make each one of us an Indriya Vijayi. That's the journey of spirituality itself. Spirituality is not just meditation and prayer. It is much deeper. So we say, how do you do that? But finally all this for what? Is only one Swadharma. We tell our civil servants, citizen-centric governance is the only Swadharma for you. Jan Bhagidari is the only approach. Citizen-centricity in everything that you do is the only way forward. And how do you do this is what we try to teach them. How do you serve citizens? And how do you move in this journey? So I believe there are 3 steps. And learning from the Gita and becoming a Karma Yogi, I believe, is at 3 levels. बहुत मुश्किल है, आसान नहीं है. It's a journey for each one of us. पहला स्टेज है, हम we tell our civil servants, do your work but don't look at the consequences. Both mushkil hai. The very incentive structure of HR is to keep incentivizing performance. And here we are telling people, don't look for consequences. Just keep doing your work. It is very nice. On one stage, not expecting salary is not possible. At least not expecting a bribe is possible. So how do you become ethical? How do you become empathetic? How do you become the spirit of justice and fairness? So this journey is फल को त्याग करना चाहिए. जो भी कर्म कर रहे हैं, काम कर रहे हैं, उसका फल को कैसे त्याग करें, वो फर्स्ट स्टेज है. Many of us have not even touched the first stage. It's so difficult. So to me, separating work and worship is the first stage. How do you teach our people that? Work is separate, कर्म अलग है. और कर्म को भगवान को प्रसाद की तरह से देना है ना, that is worship. We worship the Lord, there is still separateness. Let's consider this Dvaita. I am separate, my work is separate, God is separate. The फल I give to God, अर्पण कर देता हूँ. I will not expect anything. Whatever comes out of it, good हो सकता है, bad हो सकता है, वो भगवान का अर्पण कर देता हूँ. वो पहला स्टेज है. बहुत सारे लोग अगर इस स्टेज पहुँचेंगे तो देश में बहुत बदलाव आ जाएगा. सेकेंड, कर्म त्याग करना, ये भी आसान नहीं है. गवर्नमेंट में तो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. हम हर समय यही मांगते रहते हैं कि मुझे क्या पोस्टिंग मिलेगा. We decide what work we want to do. Every officer is constantly lobbying for what he should get. कहाँ पोस्टिंग्स हो सकता है. बहुत सारे ऑफिसर्स लोग यहाँ बैठे हैं. सबको ये नॉर्मल है. हम हमेशा सोचते हैं कि अगर वो काम मुझे मिल जाएगा तो I can do very well. I am very good. Unfortunately, my minister has posted me here. Why are we bothered? Every opportunity to serve is an opportunity to serve. It doesn't matter if you're in the NGO sector, if you're in private sector, if you're in government sector. I don't care what is given to me. I don't bother about the karma allotted to me. I will do what is given to me. वो कर्म को त्याग करना भी आसान नहीं है. And how do you teach our officers कर्म को त्याग करना चाहिए? Now, work and worship is getting a relationship. Here, work as worship. जो भी काम मुझे सौंपा जाएगा, मैं उसको अच्छे तरह से करूँगा. I'll do it as my worship to the Lord. So work as worship is an evolution, and we can transition people towards that. And the last, and that possibly, it's so difficult to see people today, I have not seen anybody, where work becomes worship, work is worship, where I understand that कर्तृत्व का त्याग करना, the doership को, पहला स्टेज में enjoyership को त्याग करना अच्छा आसान है, फल को. Next stage में I'm disconnected from that. The third stage is disidentifying ourselves as a doer. Not seeing myself as a government servant, not seeing myself as secretary to government or something else to government, but just doing my job, considering that something is getting done through me, what Swamiji said. That I think is the highest expression of Karma Yoga. And if we can get our civil servants there, when work becomes the work, when you become work is the worship itself, and when you become the instrument of change, then the spirit of Atmano Mokshartam Jagatithaya Cha will happen. My whole way of looking at it is the journey of Karma Yoga begins with separation, seeing work, the workplace and the work person separately, evolving to saying that my work is the worship I do to citizens, finally seeing that there is no distinction between me, the work, the citizens and everything around me. If India reaches that state, that is the Vikasit Bharat we should aspire for. Not every village connected, every city connected by airport. I think it will happen. But the real Vikas, the real Vikasit Bharat is when we flower out, when every one of us stands together in our consciousness as one with each other. And when that united consciousness happens, that is the Vikas that we should aspire for. So this was an extraordinary opportunity, and this journey of getting there, building our public HR on ancient wisdom. I wouldn't even say ancient now, because I think it is so current. Using the word ancient puts off people. So to me, building it on India's civilizational wisdom is what is the need of the hour. And if you present it to the rest of the world, that is the Vishwa Guru that we can manifest as. So what we have to offer to the rest of the country. So each of this, we have broken it down into behavioral and functional competencies. And how do you make it all come together by set of training, by interactions, by immersions, by learning, by using technology. The journey has begun, and we are hoping in 5 to 6 years, the impact of this will be felt on citizens. It is not talking about it, but living this message. And here, such distinguished people in this room, each one of you struggling to make this into practice. So I would request you, and I would possibly give the foundation a clear task. How do we all come together? Because the Prime Minister's call is, how does a team India emerge for a new India? It cannot just be the government's responsibility. How can it become a collective responsibility for all one of us? Samaj, Sarkar, Bazaar has to come together. Blur out the separations. Separations are administrative convenience. Just come together as sincere seekers. Seekers of building a great nation, seekers of discovering ourselves. Like Mahatma Gandhi said, how do you dissolve ourselves in the service of others? And if we can all do that, and if people can reach out, and if we can all come together, I think what we are looking for 2047, we need not wait 25 more years. We can do it much faster. And that will be more sustainable. And that will be the foundation which will be so unshakable that India's resilience will be something extraordinary, because human resilience can happen only when you stay connected to that super consciousness. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you very much, sir. May we request you to stay there for a while. Thank you very much, sir, for a lot. You rightly mentioned that the ancient wisdom should be brought with more evidences. You mentioned about creating standards for content, and you mentioned about how Karmachari should become a Karmyogi, rule-based to role-based. Four Sankalpa that you invoked is Vikas, Garva, Kartavya and Ekta. And you mentioned the importance of Swadhyaya, Sahakaryata, Rajya Dharma. And you also invoked that
Rajya Karma. Rajya Karma.
Rajya Karma and Swadharma. And 3 steps that you personally follow and you suggested us to follow is Falon ka tyag karna, separate work and worship. You mentioned about do work as worship, and work should become worship, be a karta, leaving the kartatva bhava. And as you mentioned that you invite foundation to contribute in this Team India vision, may we request you to speak a little bit more about how can we tangibly contribute. So we have United Global Peace Foundation, United Council for Ancient Wisdom. What steps we can take here on?
I would say once we launch this tomorrow, we are trying to just practicalize it and apply it in today's context. Obviously, no tool is perfect. The more we all start using it, the more the body of knowledge grows, the more the problems we'll discover. It's like a software. We'll have bugs. Bugs को आइडेंटिफाई करना सिर्फ आपका काम नहीं है. आइडेंटिफाई करने के बाद हमें सॉल्यूशंस भी देना आपका काम होगा. So that is where we request you. And like I said, try it out in different settings. This has been designed from the cabinet secretary to the Anganwadi worker at the ground, from the constable to the DGP of the state. Everybody can use it. We have tested it out and tried it. But it will work in some settings, it may not work in some settings. And if you bring it to the private sector and different sectors that you all belong to, try it out and see if it is practical. Try it on yourself and tell us what can be corrected. So the version 2 can be better. So this is a practical application. Second is, there are several researchers here. Yesterday I was talking to Ajay ji in the airport, and he has already written a paper on the past competency framework. वो तो UN के competency framework था. I have a very strong critique of the UNDP dictionary and all that. But we are trying out. We may not be no better. Though I am criticizing that, I don't know whether mine is good enough or mine or देश का अच्छा है नहीं. So if academicians sitting in this room can see through a very critical eye, from an academic lens, test it out further and tell us what can be made, where can be tweaked, so that it can become a global instrument. Right now, our intent is we should be able to provide it to global south countries. Is it even providable? Is it reached that standard? And so to enhance the standards, if we have to scale it up, we have to make it reach everybody, speed it up, and we have to keep enhancing the standards. I need your support. So in these 3 areas, scope has been defined. It has to be a public HR competency framework, which can also be private, based on India's civilizational wisdom. Clarity hai. But usko other 3 yes, if you can test it out, it will be a great help for us.
Thank you, sir. Means a lot. Thank you very much.
Ancient Wisdom and United Global Peace Foundation, I thank Professor Dr. R. Balasubramaniam for sharing his views. Thank you so much.